I held my breath when the crystal glass shattered, its thin ringing cutting the hum of the dining room, because I knew a moment like this would tie strangers together for years. But back up with me, just a few minutes, to the second a 14-year-old walked through a revolving door he didn't know his family owned. Jordan Carter had pressed his tie flat 3 times on the subway, smoothing the navy stripe to behave. His 8th grade English class had finished a unit on storytelling, and his teacher had promised, "If you turn in a piece that makes me feel something, I'll take you anywhere in the city for pie." Jordan's story had made her cry. So there he was, trailing behind Ms. Alvarez, trying to act like this wasn't the fanciest lobby he'd ever stepped into. The restaurant was called Abilene. A chandelier hung like a frozen comet above a sea of white tablecloths. Jordan felt that tug he knew well, the one that said, "Be small." Ms. Alvarez angled an encouraging smile at him. "You're my guest of honor, Jordan. 2 slices of whatever looks illegal." He laughed. He liked Ms. Alvarez's voice. A hostess led them to a corner table. "Your server will be right with you." The hostess's smile flickered, taking in Jordan's school sweater and scuffed Adidas, then settled back. Jordan noticed, because he noticed everything. The waitress arrived with menus tucked like fans under her arm. Her name tag said Sabrina. She didn't look at Jordan first. She looked at Ms. Alvarez, and the two of them exchanged that particular smile adults share when they're sure of the rules. "Good evening," Sabrina said. "Congratulations on the celebration." She set down one menu and kept the other a breath longer in her hand, eyes sliding to Jordan as if the menu weren't sure where to land. "It's a celebration," Ms. Alvarez said brightly, "because my student here wrote a story that knocked me over. We're here for pie. Or cake. Or both. And 2 lemonades." Sabrina's smile thinned. "We don't do refills on lemonade." Jordan pretended to read the menu even though the prices bit like cold air. Ms. Alvarez didn't blink. "2 lemonades, please," she repeated. "And could we see the dessert tray?" Sabrina anchored a hip against the table and offered the second menu halfway to Jordan, then stopped. "Just so you're aware," she said to Ms. Alvarez, low voice meant to be gentle but landing like a wet napkin, "we have a dress code. Hoodies and athletic wear are, well, I'm sure he's very sweet, but we do try to keep a standard. It can make other guests uncomfortable." Jordan's fingers cooled on the linen. He wasn't wearing a hoodie. He was wearing the school sweater with the crest Ms. Alvarez had given him. Ms. Alvarez's face changed, the clip of her bob going still. "He's dressed fine," Ms. Alvarez said, voice calm. "And he's my guest." Sabrina's forehead softened in a practiced way. "Of course. It's just that sometimes young men linger. And we've had trouble with phones and, well, you understand." She smiled at Jordan for the first time, a quick glance that never reached her eyes. "What's your name, honey?" "Jordan," he said. "Okay, Jordan," Sabrina chirped. "If you'd like, I can bring you a kid's menu." Ms. Alvarez's chair moved back in a clean scrape. "We're good with the regular menu," she said. Her hand touched Jordan's forearm under the table, a map point, "I'm here." Sabrina's eyes flickered to the room. She lowered her voice another notch. "I'm trying to help," she insisted. "We do have a certain clientele, and sometimes it's better to start in the lounge. He could sit there while you—" The glass broke then. Jordan hadn't touched it. It was Sabrina's elbow, brushing the stem as she leaned, the crystal tipping and striking the table edge before collapsing into a bright spray. Conversations dropped off a cliff. Heads turned. Light from the chandelier refracted in tiny moons across the tablecloth. Sabrina's apology came tight and quick. "Oh. I'll have that cleaned." "You didn't need to. Could you step back from the table, sweetheart? Careful with your clothes." She angled herself between Jordan and the mess as if he were the spill. Something in Jordan's chest hummed and rose. It wasn't anger yet. It was the opposite of numbness, the sudden awareness of cool air, citrus sting, the tremble in his fingers. He was tired, he was proud of his story, and he had walked through doors that didn't swing easy for him, and an ache lit behind his ribs like a match. Ms. Alvarez stood, voice steady. "We'll need a manager," she said. Sabrina blinked. "That's not necessary. It was an accident. I can." "A manager," Ms. Alvarez repeated. "And a fresh tablecloth. And 2 lemonades. And the dessert tray. Please." Sabrina gave a small laugh the way people do when a dog bares its teeth and they pretend it's a smile. "Of course," she said, gathering pieces of glass with a napkin. "I'll get Kyle." Jordan stepped away to avoid the shard field. Behind him, a low voice said, "You okay, young man?" Jordan half turned. The man at the next table wore a navy suit. He was black, his beard neat, a little gray at the chin. "I'm okay," Jordan said. "Good," the man replied, and dipped his head, returning to his conversation as if he'd stitched a net under Jordan and left it there. Kyle, the manager, arrived with the brisk smile of someone paid to pour oil on water. He listened to Sabrina's version, heavy on expectations, light on apology. He offered a new tablecloth, the lemonades on the house, and to redirect them to a less formal section. Ms. Alvarez listened. "We'll keep our table," she said. "We'll order what we came for. And I'd like to speak to your general manager." Kyle's fingers tightened on his tablet. "She's not on the floor tonight." "Then the owner," Ms. Alvarez said. Kyle looked like someone had handed him a riddle without vowels. "The owner isn't." A voice from the bar cut through smoothly. "The owner is here." Jordan turned as a man stepped out from behind the walnut bar, sleeves rolled at the forearm, tie loosened like an afterthought. He walked like he belonged everywhere. He was black, his smile was quiet and precise, a scar pressed a small comma beneath his left cheekbone. Jordan's mouth went dry. Because the man was Marcus Carter. Because the man was his father. Standing right in front. Marcus Carter's voice was calm, the kind of calm that made people listen harder. "Why don't you tell me what's going on at my table?" he asked, eyes sliding from Kyle to Sabrina. Jordan's stomach folded in on itself. He hadn't seen his father in months. Marcus lived somewhere between business flights and polished boardrooms, a man who shook hands with city leaders and celebrities. At school, Jordan said little about him, partly because people assumed he made everything up. And partly because it felt like talking about the sun. You could admire its warmth, but you didn't hold it. Now here he was. Kyle cleared his throat. "Just a misunderstanding, Mr. Carter. An accident with a glass. We'll move them to a different section." "No," Marcus said simply. "They'll stay." He turned his gaze on Sabrina. "And you'll bring the dessert tray. And 2 lemonades." Sabrina's lips parted, then shut. She nodded. "Yes, sir." Marcus's eyes softened when they found Jordan. "You okay, son?" Jordan swallowed. "Yeah." The word was small, but Marcus nodded like it was enough. Ms. Alvarez, steady as ever, touched Jordan's shoulder. "We were celebrating his writing," she explained to Marcus, tone warm but with an edge. "And it seems he's had to celebrate through distractions." Marcus studied her with gratitude flickering in his expression. "Thank you for looking out for him." Jordan's chest swelled and pinched all at once. He wasn't used to being spoken about like that. The staff scrambled. A new tablecloth was laid, shards whisked away, the chandelier's light returning to glass instead of fracture. Sabrina reappeared with the dessert tray balanced carefully, cheeks taut in a forced smile. She listed each offering: cheesecake, tiramisu, chocolate mousse, apple tart. Her voice was clipped, but quieter now. Jordan pointed to the chocolate mousse. Ms. Alvarez chose apple tart. 2 lemonades appeared moments later, sweating in tall glasses. Marcus remained standing, hand in his pocket, watching with a gravity that seemed to shift the entire room. He finally sat at their table, uninvited but welcome, his chair sliding into place as if it had been waiting. "Tell me about this story," he said. His voice softened, not for the room but for Jordan alone. Jordan glanced at Ms. Alvarez, who smiled. He cleared his throat. It was about finding home. But not a place. More like finding people who make you feel seen. His words were shy, but they came. It was about a boy who thought he didn't matter until someone listened. Marcus's face did not move for a long second. Then, slowly, he smiled. "That's a story worth writing," he said. Jordan blinked fast, trying not to show how much those words stitched something inside him. The mousse tasted like velvet and sugar, like something he wasn't supposed to eat but couldn't stop. Ms. Alvarez beamed, eyes crinkling as if this moment were a treasure. Sabrina hovered nearby, clearly uneasy. Marcus turned to her. "Sabrina, is it?" "Yes, sir." He leaned forward. "I hire staff who know that respect isn't reserved for people in suits. It's for anyone who walks through those doors. If you can't manage that, you won't work here." His words weren't loud, but every syllable cut clean. Sabrina's throat bobbed. "I understand," she whispered. "Do you?" Marcus pressed. "Because my son walked in tonight dressed neatly, accompanied by his teacher, ready to celebrate something good. And instead of seeing a young man, you saw a problem. That doesn't happen again. Not to him. Not to anyone." Sabrina's eyes darted down. I'm sorry," she muttered. Jordan shifted, unsure whether to feel vindicated or exposed. Marcus's words were strong, but the spotlight burned. He wished the whole restaurant wasn't listening, but at the same time, some part of him wanted every single guest to hear. Kyle stepped in, voice sharp with nervousness. "Of course, Mr. Carter. It won't happen again. I'll personally." Marcus raised a hand. "See that it doesn't." He then turned back to Jordan, as though the rest of the room had evaporated. "You finished your dessert?" Jordan nodded, pushing the glass empty. "Good," Marcus said. He stood again, his presence pulling the air with him. "Walk with me." Jordan looked to Ms. Alvarez, who squeezed his hand. "Go on," she said gently. He followed his father past the bar, through a corridor lined with photographs of celebrities and dignitaries who had eaten at Abilene. Marcus stopped at a door marked "Private." Inside, the hum of the restaurant dulled, replaced by quiet leather chairs and a desk strewn with papers. Marcus closed the door. His shoulders lowered slightly, as if he could finally breathe. "Jordan," he said, softer now. "I didn't know you were coming tonight." "I didn't know you were here," Jordan replied, voice small. Marcus sighed, rubbing the scar on his cheek. "Business keeps me moving. But that's not an excuse. I should have been around more." Jordan's eyes dropped. "It's okay." "No," Marcus said firmly. "It's not. You deserve better." He crouched slightly so their eyes met. "What you faced tonight, people making assumptions because of your skin, your clothes, I've faced it too. That's partly why I built this place. So we could have a space where dignity was the rule." Jordan shifted, the words heavy but true. "Then why'd she treat me like that?" "Because respect can't just be written in a handbook," Marcus explained. "It has to live in the people. And sometimes people forget. Or refuse. That's why we remind them." Jordan swallowed. "You reminded her." Marcus gave a small smile. "And you reminded me." They sat in the quiet, father and son, shadows stretching long across the polished desk. Finally, Marcus asked, "Can I read your story?" Jordan hesitated, then pulled the folded pages from his backpack. Marcus took them reverently, like they were worth more than stock portfolios. He read silently, lips moving just faintly. With each paragraph, his face softened, eyes dimming then shining again. When he finished, he set the papers down carefully. "You don't just write, Jordan," he said. "You speak to people's hearts. That's a gift. And it's yours." Jordan's chest tightened, pride blooming against the ache. He whispered, "Thanks." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "I don't want tonight to end with anger. I want it to end with you knowing you belong here, more than anyone. This place, this restaurant, this city. You belong." Jordan's eyes stung. He nodded, unable to speak. When they stepped back into the dining room, heads turned again, but this time the glances carried something different, respect, or maybe curiosity, or maybe both. Marcus placed his hand lightly at his son's back as they returned to Ms. Alvarez. She smiled at them both. "Everything okay?" Marcus nodded. "Better than okay." Jordan met her eyes. For the first time all night, he felt taller. As they left the restaurant together, the chandelier glowed behind them, no longer a frozen comet but a steady star. And Jordan knew, sometimes the stories you write come true in ways you never expect. Life has a way of testing us in unexpected places. Tonight, Jordan walked into a restaurant unsure of his worth, and walked out knowing he belonged, not because of wealth or ownership, but because dignity can't be denied. Remember this, no matter where you come from, or what others may assume about you, your story matters. And when someone finally listens, the world changes, sometimes one table, one voice, and one story at a time.